Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, Congresswoman Liz Cheney is firing back at fellow Republicans as calls grow to remove her from her leadership post. Cheney angered some colleagues by criticizing those who spread false claims about former President Trump winning the 2020 election. Now in a Washington Post op-ed, she's warning the Republican Party that the GOP is at a turning point and history is watching. Her GOP critics are rallying behind Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who voted to overturn the results of the 2020 election. They're rallying behind her to replace Cheney as conference chair. That vote could come as early as next week. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has just signed a sweeping election security bill. Among other changes, the bill restricts the use of ballot drop boxes, requiring they be supervised and only used at certain times. It's the latest in a wave of similar election laws. Republicans are pushing across the country, citing election integrity. But critics call the laws voter suppression, and activists have already filed lawsuits against the Florida law. And the CDC is projecting high vaccination rates, continued masking, and social distancing could all bring a sharp decline in COVID cases by July. There are still questions, though, about how long vaccines will provide protection. Moderna has announced that should vaccine boosters become necessary, early data suggests theirs will be effective against strains from South Africa and Brazil. And the FDA is expected to authorize the Pfizer vaccine for kids 12 to 15 in the next few days, and those as young as 2 by the fall. But a lot of parents still have questions about COVID vaccines for kids. Our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, answered a few of them this morning on GMA. Check it out.
The first question, Maria on Facebook, are the vaccines expected to have side effects on kids?
So this is a really common and important question that a lot of parents and grandparents are asking. And the short answer is yes, there can always be side effects. And remember, when you talk about vaccines, a lot of times these temporary, non-serious side effects are just our immune system doing its job. In the clinical trials in the pediatric age range, the Pfizer vaccine showed no serious safety concerns. So that is really, really important. So short-term side effects, like maybe a little fever, body aches, headaches, possible, but serious, not seen yet, luckily.
All right. Next up is Jamie on Twitter, who asks, if my children are healthy and all of the adults in our house have been vaccinated, why do our kids need to get the vaccine?
Really important to remember that kids do not spend 100% of their time indoors. So there are really two big reasons that kids need to get the vaccine. One of them is that it is possible that they could be infected and then unknowingly pass COVID-19 to someone with a serious or underlying pre-existing medical condition. And also, though it's very uncommon and unlikely, it is still possible that children infected with COVID-19 could become seriously ill or worse. We have seen that. So it's important to think really in ripple effects outside the box. It's not just your home environment that you need to worry about.
You got to keep that in mind. These are some really good questions, including this one. Molly on Facebook. She says, are researchers testing to see the impact these vaccines will have on teens going through puberty? What about long-term effects?
Yeah, and we're seeing this myth propagated on social media about these vaccines affecting other women's menstrual cycles. I want to put that to rest here for sure. There's a big difference, Robin, between observation and association and causation, cause and effect. This defies science and biology. There is no interaction between these vaccines and reproductive hormonal effects like puberty or menstruation or fertility. It is really important to understand basic biology here. Women can have changes in their menstrual cycle and also have gotten the vaccine. That does not mean one caused the other. So right now, there's no puberty concerns, there's no fertility concerns, and it's just implausible that these vaccines can affect a woman's monthly cycle.
All right, our thanks to Dr. Ashton for those answers. And intermission is almost over. New York has announced Broadway will reopen in September at 100% capacity. Theaters have been shut down for more than a year due to the pandemic. So what will reopening look like? Broadway League President Charlotte St. Martin joins us now for more on this. Charlotte, good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here with such great news.
I know. I'm glad to finally have you on to talk about something positive. So what was your reaction when you heard this announcement? What does it mean for the Broadway community?
Well, there's just so many reactions, and all of them are good. The fact that the 97,000 workers who've been out of work for 14 months, and it will be close to 18 months by the time we do get open, will be back to work doing what they love is so exciting. And of course, we'll be providing that amazing magic that sitting in a Broadway theater seeing a live show that's that one show you never see again, because everything that's live is different, as you all well know. So that's very exciting. New York City will come back to being what it is when Broadway is there. So there's good news all around.
I cannot wait. So tell me, do you know what reopening will look like? Do you know what shows will come back or which new ones will open?
Well, we do know that 31 of the shows that were performing or about to open when we shut down on March 12th, are scheduled to come back. Some September, some October, some November, and a few in December. We also know of a few new shows that are coming. For example, Thoughts of a Colored Man and MJ the Musical are two new shows, and there are many more that haven't officially announced, but that I'm aware of. So I think by the end of December, we will have more than 35 shows in performances for our citizens and our visitors.
Now, seating capacity will be 100%. And for anyone who's never been to a Broadway show, you are elbow to elbow. So what safety measures will be in place?
Well, certainly we're anticipating that people will be wearing masks. There'll be more contactless services, and ingress and regress at this point, we suspect, will be firm. The other protocols are still being discussed with the governor. As you well know, things change on a weekly basis, and so we're working very closely with the Department of Health of New York State to finalize what those things look like as we continue to get closer to reopening.
And we want to squeeze in a few more questions for you. So we're going to do just a quick lightning round, and you just tell us the first answer that comes to mind. So what's the first show you want to see when Broadway reopens?
Well, I love all my children, but Phantom is our longest running show, so I want to be there to celebrate with them.
We've heard some rumors. So is Tiger King the musical happening?
Have not heard that.
Could Ratatouille, the TikTok musical, make a comeback on Broadway?
Well, there's certainly discussions about that. It's not finalized at this point, but it had a certain success that tells me it's possible.
All right. We like when things are possible. And what's your Broadway song of the summer? What are you going to listen to on repeat as you count down to reopening?
Well, Chorus Line is my favorite show of all times. It's on our hold music at the Broadway League, so I'm certainly listening to that. I'm listening to In the Heights, to Hamilton, to Come From Away. There's so many great scores that just make my heart sing.
There sure are. We really look forward to seeing them live on stage once again. Broadway League President Charlotte St. Martin, thanks so much for your time today. Good luck.
Thank you.
Break a leg, I should say.
Absolutely. Thanks
you. Thanks again. And countless families from Honduras have made the journey north in search of a better life. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at what's driving the exodus to the U.S. border and why some are demanding the president of Honduras be held accountable. Welcome back. Violence and corruption are some of the main reasons families keep making the dangerous trek to our southern border. But what happens when a country's president is accused of perpetuating these conditions? Rachel Scott has a look at the delicate diplomatic dance our government is facing when dealing with the president of Honduras.
It is sometimes called the heart of the Americas. Nestled in between North and South America, Honduras is a country known for its beautiful natural resources and endless terrain. But in the last few years, the beauty of this country of over 9 million people has been shadowed by rampant violence and corruption, causing a mass exodus to our southern border, all in the hope of a safer and better life. I traveled to the U.S.-Mexico border at the end of March, where I met this mother and her 5-year-old daughter just moments after they crossed the border, hoping to reunite not only with her husband, but also her young son.
Está muy deprimido y entonces yo necesitaba volver a estar con él. Tenía que seguir luchando.
The mom carrying with her a single strip of paper.
And the address, the number and the address of where they can go.
Wondering if she would ever be able to hold her son again.
Cuando ha hablado conmigo me dice, mamá, ¿cuándo vas a estar conmigo? Y a mí me duele mucho porque eso no es muy fácil. No le puedo decir mañana porque no sé si yo iré a tener la oportunidad de estar con él de nuevo.
This mother just one of the almost 41,000 Hondurans who were encountered at the border in the month of March alone. Many of them say they were fleeing the growing crisis back home.
Prosecutors citing Juan Orlando Hernandez as a co-conspirator in a drug trafficking case.
The country's president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, along with his brother Tony Hernandez, a former Honduran congressman, have been accused by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency of being a key figure in a violent state-sponsored drug trafficking conspiracy. In fact, it was a U.S. federal case against Tony Hernandez, where the U.S. government asserted that organized drug trafficking and corruption reached the highest levels of the Honduran government.
This is a narco cartel actually taking full military, diplomatic, political, economical control of a whole country and putting that power to bear into moving drugs to the U.S.
Sergio Barr is a sociologist and political analyst in Honduras who has been closely following the U.S. case against Tony Hernandez and the humanitarian migration crisis in the U.S.
What's happening in Honduras is an absolute collapse of the democratic institutions. The law system is broken, the political system is broken, the economical system is certainly broken.
The president's brother, former Honduran Congressman Tony Hernandez, was sentenced by the Southern District of New York to life behind bars for his role in drugs and weapons trafficking. An explosive trial where U.S. prosecutors presented evidence that President Hernandez not only accepted $1 million in bribes from drug king El Chapo, but that he wanted to, quote, stuff drugs up the gringos' noses. President Hernandez, who denies all allegations, has positioned himself for years as a strong ally to the United States. But on the heels of these allegations, members of Congress have condemned his government.
I hope that the Justice Department will take an even more active role in making sure that the governments that we're dealing with are straight up.
For years now, Hondurans, especially younger ones, have taken to the streets to protest. Many of them with one simple message splattered across buildings and signs: out with JOH, the initials for Juan Orlando Hernandez. Daniel Correa is a college student participating in protests against the Hernandez regime.
El sistema electoral en Honduras es un chiste.
The 22-year-old uncertain if a bright future for him is an option in his native country.
No tenemos estas oportunidades.
We don't have the opportunities to grow, whether personally or collectively. There's no social mobility, no opportunities for personal growth. That's the reason why the majority of us young people are being forced to emigrate.
And Washington is paying attention. Recently, President Joe Biden announcing he's considering sanctions against Central American leaders for corruption. Biden putting his vice president, Kamala Harris, in charge of addressing the root causes of migration. And some in Congress have introduced bills to hold the Honduran president accountable. This one proposed by Congressman Joaquin Castro and other Democrats on Capitol Hill would sanction the president for corruption and humanitarian rights abuses.
What happens if you don't get past these challenges? What is the consequence?
My fear is that these challenges are going to languish and that the people of Honduras, most of all, will pay a deep price in all of this, and that you'll continue to see very desperate people making a dangerous trek to our border.
There are people who are fed up and they're walking all the way to the U.S. in order to provide a better future for their family.
The hope for a better future and an outcome like Lesvin and her daughter Anjali, who managed to reunite with her husband and son in Maryland. It was the first time they saw each other in years. The family telling ABC News, as parents, we are happy and grateful that God gave us this opportunity to have our children grow up together, fleeing the claws of corruption to be in the arms of family. Rachel Scott, ABC News, Washington.
Our thanks to Rachel for that report. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Ukraine today, meeting with the president there. Blinken said Washington could increase security measures for the country after what he called Russia's, quote, reckless and aggressive actions near its border. Another issue that might come up, the FBI raid on Rudy Giuliani related to his role in the removal of Ukraine's ambassador back in 2019. Our Mary Alice Parks is traveling with the Secretary of State and has more from Ukraine. Good morning, Mary Alice.
This is a fairly fragile democracy that for decades has struggled with corruption and weak institutions, and it's the only European country with an active hot war. This is a nation that is constantly under the threat of shelling in the face of Russian aggression, struggling to maintain its own borders, fighting against the possibility of losing more of its territory. And that threat of invasion reaching just a fever pitch this last month. More than 13,000 Ukrainians have died in the last 7 years since Russia invaded Crimea and invaded parts of eastern Ukraine in 2014. But this last month, again, Russia sending tens of thousands of troops right to the eastern border of Ukraine, even though Secretary of State Blinken is on the ground delivering a message that is strong, pushing reforms, pushing anti-corruption. Just the fact that he is here at all, that he is on the ground holding these high-level meetings, is just an unbelievable sign of support for this government and a signal back to Moscow. It's the show of support that the Zelensky government was hoping to receive from former President Trump. Remember, the first impeachment trial of President Trump centered on whether Trump and Rudy Giuliani were withholding military equipment, meetings, signs of public support to Ukraine in exchange for a public announcement about investigating President Biden's son. And there's still fallout. The last few weeks, that raid on Rudy Giuliani's apartment as a part of a criminal investigation about his work here in Ukraine, who he was working with, what they were trying to do, whether they were trying to influence U.S. diplomacy. American and Ukrainian politics have just been so intertwined these last 5 years. You get the sense that the government here is trying to carefully untangle and distance itself from the last U.S. administration and build new relationships with this new Biden White House. President Zelensky says, let bygones be bygones. He wants to move forward. And this trip by the Secretary of State comes on the heels of new escalating sanctions between the White House and Russia and talks of a possible meeting between President Biden and President Putin. Diane?
All right, Mary Alice Parks in Ukraine for us. Thanks, Mary Alice. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern with Terry Moran for the breakdown. Stay safe.
Well, here it is. Friends is over 10 years, 236 episodes. They called it a day.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.